The simple ring he bought turned out to be an alien marriage bond. His life was simple, predictable, and completely ordinary. That Saturday afternoon, he decided to take a walk through the old part of the city, where small shops lined the narrow streets and the air smelled faintly of spices and dust. He had no particular goal, only a sense that he wanted something new, something small to brighten the dullness of his life. One shop in particular caught his attention. Its wooden sign was faded, and the glass in the windows was slightly fogged, but inside, rows of strange trinkets gleamed under soft yellow light. Elias pushed the door open and was greeted by the gentle chime of a bell. The shop smelled of old books, metal, and something else he couldn't identify. The shelves were crowded with rings, pendants, and small statues. It felt like stepping into a memory that was not his own. Elias wandered slowly, his fingers brushing against the edges of delicate objects. One ring in particular drew his eye. It was simple, just a smooth band of silver with a faint warmth to it that made him pause. There were no jewels, no engraving, nothing that would make it stand out in a collection like this. And yet, as he held it in his hand, he felt a strange comfort, almost like the ring had been waiting for him. "Ah," said a voice behind him. Elias turned to see an old man with a long white beard and bright, intelligent eyes. "I see you found it." "The ring?" Elias asked, holding it up. The man nodded slowly. "Yes, it is not just a ring, though it appears simple. It carries a connection, a bond. It chooses its wearer, not the other way around." Elias raised an eyebrow. "A connection, bond, I don't understand." "Some things cannot be explained easily," the old man said with a faint smile. "But you will know when the time comes." Elias hesitated. He was a practical man, someone who trusted reason over mystery. And yet something about the ring felt right. Without knowing why, he paid the man and left the shop. The sun was beginning to lower in the sky, painting the streets with gold and amber light. Elias slid the ring onto his finger and felt a tiny pulse, almost like a heartbeat. He shook his head and smiled at himself. "It's probably just the cold metal," he muttered. That night, Elias went to bed with the ring still on his finger. Sleep came easily, and he dreamed of stars, millions of them stretching into infinite darkness. In his dreams, he saw shapes moving between the stars, beautiful and impossible creatures that spoke without sound. He woke up gasping, sweat on his brow, the ring warm against his skin. Over the next few days, strange things began to happen. At first, they were small and almost unnoticeable. Elias noticed he could remember small details with incredible clarity, facts that he had read years ago but forgotten. His senses felt sharper. He could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator from the other room and see the tiny imperfections in the floorboards that had never caught his attention before. He laughed at himself, thinking it was just coincidence, a trick of his mind. But then the dreams returned, stronger and more vivid. In them, the creatures spoke more clearly, no longer through symbols and movement, but with words he could understand. They did not sound like voices. They felt like thoughts being placed gently into his mind. "You have accepted," they said. "You are chosen." Elias woke again, unsure whether he had slept or been awake. He tried to push the thoughts aside. Humans were not chosen by invisible forces from the stars, he told himself. It was nonsense. And yet, the warmth of the ring seemed to thrum against his finger, as if confirming the words he wanted to deny. It was the evening of the 5th day when he first noticed the ship. At first, he thought it was a strange cloud formation, the kind that sometimes hung over the horizon in unusual patterns. But the shape held, and it moved with purpose, glinting like metal in the fading sunlight. It was sleek, unlike any airplane or drone he had ever seen. As the sky darkened, it remained, hovering silently above the city. News reports were chaotic. People speculated everything from military tests to meteorological experiments. But Elias did not watch much television. He only felt the strange pull of the ring, almost urging him to look up. He sensed that whatever had arrived in the sky had noticed him as well. The next morning, there was a knock at his door. When he opened it, there was no one there. Only a small device, hovering a few inches above the ground, projecting a holographic image. The image resolved into the figure of a humanoid being, taller than a human, with skin that shimmered faintly in shifting shades of blue and silver. Its eyes were large and intelligent, holding a depth that made Elias' chest tighten. "You are Elias Ward," the being said. Its voice was calm, melodic, and in a tone that seemed to reach directly into his mind rather than his ears. "You have accepted the bond." Elias took a step back, heart pounding. Bond, I don't understand, I just bought a ring. The being's gaze softened. The ring is not ordinary. It is an ancient relic used to connect one chosen being to another across the stars. You have unknowingly initiated the ritual. You are now linked. Linked. The word hung in the air. Elias tried to make sense of it. Linked how? Linked to whom? You're saying I'm married or something. The being's expression, impossible though it was to interpret fully, seemed to convey both patience and mild amusement. Yes, in your terms that is correct, but it is not as simple as your customs. This bond carries meaning, responsibility, and recognition across our civilizations. You have been chosen not by chance, but by the resonance of your being with the relic. Elias laughed nervously. This has to be a joke. You're aliens, right? I mean, I read about First Contact, but this is insane. The figure inclined its head. Insanity is perspective. Your people's understanding of choice, loyalty, and freedom is unique. That is why you were chosen. Over the next hours, Elias tried to ask more questions, but the being, who introduced itself as Salith, explained that much could not yet be revealed. The bond would strengthen, and as it did, Elias would begin to experience changes, enhanced understanding, awareness, and a sense of connection he had never felt before. Elias went to work the next day, trying to act normal. He poured coffee, filed reports, and spoke with his colleagues as though nothing had happened. And yet the ring was constantly warm on his finger. At lunch, he noticed that his colleagues' moods, even their body language, became easier for him to read. He realized he could predict reactions almost before they happened, a skill that would have seemed impossible before. By the third day, the dreams had returned with greater intensity. He saw vast cities on alien planets, ships moving like schools of fish, and creatures of unimaginable beauty communicating through thought alone. Each night, he awoke with a stronger sense that he was not alone, that his life had become entwined with something much greater than the world he had known. One evening, as he walked back to his apartment after buying groceries, he felt it, a vibration along his spine, subtle yet insistent. He looked up at the night sky, and there it was again, the ship, not moving this time, only observing. Elias swallowed hard, realizing that his simple purchase, a small silver ring, had changed the course of his life forever. He returned home and held the ring in his hand, staring at it as though it were alive. For the first time, he felt an emotion stronger than curiosity or confusion, a quiet thrill, a spark of pride. He had been chosen, and in that choice was a recognition of humanity itself. Elias did not know what the next days would bring, but he sensed the truth in his chest. His ordinary life was over. Something extraordinary had begun. And though he felt fear, he also felt hope. Hope that perhaps, for the first time, he had become part of something larger than himself. He looked at the stars from his window and whispered to no one, "I don't know what this means, but I'm ready." Elias had not slept well the night before. Every time he closed his eyes, the visions of alien cities, ships moving like rivers of light, and creatures with silver-blue skin returned. The ring pulsed faintly against his finger, as if it knew he was thinking about it. He rubbed it absent-mindedly and wondered how a simple purchase from a dusty old shop could lead to such impossible events. When morning came, there was another knock at his door. He opened it to find a small, smooth device hovering just above the floor, its surface glinting with faint blue light. It emitted a soft hum that made the hairs on his arms rise. The holographic figure from before appeared in the middle of his living room without warning. "You are Elias Ward," the being said. Its voice was calm, and again it reached directly into his mind, bypassing sound entirely. "You accepted the bond. I am Salith, your partner in this connection. You must come with me to understand what you have entered." Elias blinked. "I partner, come with you, where?" Salith inclined its head. "To my ship, to learn to see. Your comprehension will be faster if you witness, not only here." Elias hesitated. He was a man of logic, a man who worked with machines and numbers, and yet here he was, being asked to step into a reality he could not begin to explain. Curiosity outweighed fear. The warmth of the ring along his finger felt like an encouragement, a silent push toward this impossible journey. He nodded. "Okay, I'll go." In an instant, the device expanded and enveloped him in a soft glow. The room seemed to stretch and warp around him, and then everything went dark. When he opened his eyes, he was standing in a space far larger than his apartment, far larger than anything he had ever imagined. The interior of the ship shimmered with smooth surfaces and soft light. The walls were curved, seamless, and pale, with glowing lines running along them like veins of energy. The air smelled faintly metallic, but not unpleasantly so. Elias realized he could hear the hum of the ship's systems as if they were part of his own body. Salith gestured for him to follow. "This is not your world, Elias. It is important that you understand our customs and the purpose of the bond." They walked down a corridor that seemed to shift subtly as they moved, expanding to accommodate them. "Why me?" Elias asked, finally speaking. "Why would your species choose a human?" Salith's large eyes fixed on him. "Because humans are unique. You bond not for obligation, not for power or advantage, but for choice. The acceptance of a bond by will alone, freely, is rare in the galaxy. Your kind possesses qualities that can change the balance of interstellar relationships." Elias shook his head, trying to process the words. "So, I'm special because I agreed to a ring." "You are special because you understand what it means to respect a connection," Salith said. "You do not assume ownership, you do not assume control. You honor the bond because you choose to honor it. This is unusual and valuable." They reached a large observation chamber. Walls of transparent material stretched to reveal the blackness of space, punctuated by the distant twinkle of stars. The ship seemed to float silently, unbound by any human notion of engines or gravity. Elias stepped closer to the window. "It's beautiful. It is our home. And it is now connected to yours through the bond," Salith said. "You will not only learn about us, Elias, but also about yourself. The bond will guide your growth. It is not a simple relationship. It is a merging of understanding, communication, and responsibility. It is a commitment to mutual respect, and through that to greater possibilities." Elias swallowed. I don't know what to say." "You need not say anything yet. Observation and comprehension come before speech. You are being tested in the most subtle way, how you act, how you respond, and whether you will honor the choice you made. Many species have failed at this step." For hours, Elias followed Salith through the ship, learning about its systems, the flow of energy, and the strange, alien technology that seemed alive yet obeyed simple commands. He realized that every action he took affected the ship, sometimes subtly, sometimes dramatically. Buttons, gestures, and even thoughts were recognized by the systems, which responded almost as if anticipating his intentions. By the afternoon, Elias began to feel changes in himself. His senses felt sharper, his mind clearer. He could focus on tasks that would have normally required great effort. He realized he was starting to understand not just the ship, but the signals and patterns of the universe in a way that had never been possible before. "You are adjusting," Salith said, observing him. "The bond allows you to perceive more, to process faster. This is a necessary stage for you to interact with my species. The connection grows stronger each day." Elias frowned. "Interact, you mean with your people?" "Yes, soon your presence on Earth will be of interest to many. The acceptance of the bond has made Earth relevant. You will be seen as a link between your species and ours." Elias felt a sudden weight in his chest. "Relevant, as in important, dangerous?" Salith's gaze softened. "Both. The bond grants recognition. Some will seek to understand you, some will seek to use you. But fear not. You have qualities that even we did not fully anticipate. Your fairness, your insistence on mutual respect, your willingness to learn, all of these are strengths." That evening, Elias stood again at the observation window, watching the stars move past silently. He thought about his life back on Earth, how ordinary it had been, and how drastically it had changed in just a few days. He thought about the ring on his finger, a simple silver band that had somehow opened a door to a universe he never imagined. Salith approached quietly. "Do you understand why you were chosen?" I think so," Elias said slowly. "It's not about power or control. It's about responsibility, about respect, about being willing to be part of something bigger than yourself." "Correct," Salith said, "and that is why humans, though young and untested among the stars, are remarkable. You will show others what a species can accomplish when guided by choice, not obligation." They spent the night in silence, the hum of the ship a constant companion. Elias realized he felt a connection not only to Salith, but to the universe itself. The bond was no longer just a strange, magical object. It was a part of him, shaping how he thought, how he sensed, and how he understood others. The next morning, the ship made its first course adjustment, turning toward a distant point among the stars. Elias had questions, endless ones, but he knew there was time. He trusted Salith to guide him. He trusted himself to learn. And he trusted the bond, simple as it seemed, to show him the path. During the following days, he learned the protocols of the bond, simple yet profound. The bond was not just a connection between two beings. It was a recognition of equality, a promise to act with honor and integrity, and a test of patience and understanding. Elias found that even small actions, like offering assistance or choosing honesty, strengthened the bond. One day, as they observed the stars, Salith explained the broader purpose of the Vayari civilization. We are a species of many rules and traditions. Bonds are not taken lightly. They are meant to unite, not control, and to create understanding between different peoples. Your acceptance of this bond has shown more than your willingness. It has shown the potential of your entire species. Elias paused, staring at the distant sun glinting off the curves of alien worlds. So, humans, we could really be part of something like this? Salith nodded. Yes, but only if your people demonstrate the qualities that brought you here. Courage, intelligence, fairness, and the ability to choose freely. These are your strengths. These are the qualities that can change how the galaxy sees you. Elias felt a rush of pride and fear at the same time. He was still only one man, yet the weight of the bond, and the potential it represented, pressed upon him like the gravity of a planet. He realized that what had begun as a simple act, buying a ring, had become a turning point for himself and perhaps for all of humanity. The final test came unexpectedly. A message arrived on the ship, a signal of unfamiliar origin but clearly sent with intent. Salith explained it was the recognition of the bond by other Vayari factions, some curious, some skeptical, and some hostile. Elias was no longer just a human man with a ring. He was now a symbol, a bridge, and a representative of humanity. He looked down at the ring, feeling its warmth and the pulse that had never left him. He smiled faintly. He was terrified, yes, but he also felt exhilarated. He was part of something extraordinary, and the journey had only just begun. Elias knew one thing for certain. He would honor this bond, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. In doing so, he had already begun to teach the first lesson of humanity to the stars. That choice, respect, and commitment were as powerful as any weapon, any technology, any fleet of ships. And as the stars moved past, silent and eternal, Elias felt a quiet certainty that humanity, through him, had just taken its first real step among them. Elias had grown accustomed to the rhythm of the ship, the hum of energy beneath his feet, and the quiet presence of Salith beside him. But the serenity of these days could not last. A new signal appeared on the ship's sensors, one unlike any they had received before. Its pattern was deliberate, almost urgent, and it carried a weight that made the ring on Elias' finger pulse faster than ever. Salith studied the readouts carefully. "It is not a greeting," it said finally. "It is a summons. Other factions of my people have noticed the bond. Some are curious, some are suspicious, and some are hostile. They wish to question you, perhaps to test you." Elias frowned. "Test me? I didn't even ask for this. I just bought a ring." "You did not ask," Salith agreed, "but choice has consequences. This bond is recognized across our civilization. Your acceptance has made you significant. That is why they have responded. Your actions now will affect more than yourself. They will affect your species." The thought hit Elias with a strange mixture of pride and fear. He, an ordinary human engineer, had become a symbol in a galaxy he could barely imagine, and yet he felt a surge of determination. He had accepted the bond, and he would honor it no matter the cost. The ship adjusted course, moving toward the source of the signal. When they arrived, Elias could see the alien vessels, elegant and vast, forming a silent formation around them. They were not warships, but ceremonial ships, symbols of authority and scrutiny. The larger, more ornate vessels carried the air of judgment, their shapes and lights signaling importance beyond Elias' comprehension. Salith guided him to a chamber where the meeting would take place. It was large, round, and glowing with a soft, shifting light. Holographic projections appeared, representing alien leaders who had come to witness the human who had accepted the bond. Some were humanoid like Salith, others completely different. Tall, thin beings with translucent skin, floating entities that moved with no visible support, and others that seemed to exist partially out of phase with the room itself. One of the leaders, a tall figure with deep amber eyes, spoke first. Its voice was harsh, filled with authority. You, human, have accepted a Veyari bond. You do not belong among us. Why should we not annul this connection? Elias felt the weight of their gaze. Every one of these beings radiated intelligence, experience, and suspicion. For a moment, he thought of turning away, of retreating to the safety of his apartment on Earth. But he looked down at the ring, smooth and warm against his finger, and remembered the trust it represented. I did not choose this lightly, Elias said. His voice, though human and small compared to the resonant tones of the aliens, carried conviction. I accepted it freely, knowing nothing of your customs or your traditions, but I honor it because I understand the responsibility it carries. I do not claim ownership. I do not seek advantage. I only seek to respect the bond and the connection it represents. A murmur passed through the room. Elias realized that even across species, respect and sincerity were recognizable. One of the more skeptical leaders, its translucent form shifting like water, leaned forward. You speak of respect, yet you are inexperienced, untested. How can a human demonstrate qualities that others have spent centuries perfecting? Elias took a deep breath. I may be inexperienced, but I believe that choice, fairness, and understanding are strengths of my species. We value loyalty, honesty, and cooperation. These are things that cannot be learned in centuries. They must be lived and practiced, and I am willing to live them. There was a long silence. Elias could feel the tension in the room, a pressure that seemed almost physical. Then one of the leaders, a being with wings like glimmering ribbons, stepped forward. Its voice was calm, almost curious. You have not only accepted the bond, but you also understand its meaning. That is unusual. It is rare for one of your kind to demonstrate such insight. Salith glanced at Elias and nodded slightly, pride in its eyes. Your species is capable of more than you know, it said softly. They are beginning to see it. The meeting continued for hours. The leaders asked questions, some straightforward, some testing, others designed to probe the limits of Elias' understanding. They asked about Earth, about humans, about his ability to make choices, to honor promises, and to act without coercion. Elias answered honestly, speaking of his life, his values, and his willingness to learn. Each answer was met with analysis, and yet slowly the attitude in the room began to shift. One of the leaders, a being whose skin shimmered like liquid metal, finally spoke with measured respect. You are not our equal in experience, human, but your perspective is unique. Your willingness to choose, to respect, to act responsibly challenges our assumptions about your kind. This is valuable. Elias felt a surge of relief, but also understanding. He was not being praised for cleverness or power, but for qualities that were human, choice, loyalty, and respect. That was what made him extraordinary in the eyes of these beings. After the meeting, Salith guided him back to their ship. Elias' mind was still racing, processing the complexity of what had occurred. I can't believe it, he said. I went from being just a regular engineer to I don't even know what I am now, a representative, a bridge. You are exactly that, Salith said. Your actions demonstrate what humanity can offer. We have observed civilizations that follow rules and power. They believe strength comes from force or influence. You have shown that strength can also come from fairness, understanding, and mutual respect. Elias paused. Do you really think humans are ready for this? For the galaxy? Salith's eyes glimmered. They are more ready than they realize. The bond has brought attention, yes, but it has also given you an opportunity. One human, acting with integrity and understanding, can teach more than an entire fleet of armies. You have already begun to show this. The following days were filled with observation and learning. Elias began to understand how the Veyari factions operated, how they valued honor, alliances, and the careful balance of power. He saw disputes resolved not through violence, but through negotiation and insight. He realized that his human traits, empathy, curiosity, cooperation, gave him an unexpected advantage. One evening, as the ship drifted past a cluster of stars, Elias and Salith stood together, silent for a moment. I never imagined life could be like this, Elias said. One minute I'm buying a ring, the next I'm this. Salith regarded him. And yet you have handled it well. Do you see now why you were chosen? I think I do, Elias said slowly. It's not just about the bond, it's about showing that humans can be more than we appear. That we can act with honor even when we don't have to, that our choices matter. Salith nodded. Yes, and others are watching. Some will try to challenge you, test your intentions, or use the situation for their own ends. But your actions now set the example. How you respond will define not only your bond, but how your species is perceived. Elias swallowed. So the next step, it's going to be harder? Perhaps, Salith said, but also more important, you have shown comprehension and integrity. Now you will face scrutiny from those who do not yet understand. Your humanity will be tested against centuries of tradition and expectation. Over the next week, the ship moved between different sectors of the Vayari civilization. Each time, Elias encountered leaders, scholars, and diplomats. Some were curious and welcoming, others were suspicious, their questions sharp and probing. Each encounter was a test, and each time Elias relied on the lessons he had learned: honesty, patience, and respect. One encounter nearly broke him. A council of elder Vayari questioned his understanding of loyalty and commitment. They demanded that he prove the strength of the bond not through words, but through action. Elias felt the weight of expectation pressing down on him. He thought of Earth, of his life before the ring, and he realized that he was no longer living for himself alone. The bond had tied him to something greater, and he had to honor that trust. He spoke clearly, firmly, and from the heart. I will honor the bond not because I am forced to, not because it gives me advantage, but because it is the right thing to do. That is how humans act, and that is how I choose to act. The council was silent. Elias felt the seconds stretch like hours. Then one of the elders inclined its head. You speak truly, you act with a rare understanding. This is unusual, but it is acceptable. The bond is recognized. The human demonstrates qualities that are valuable. Elias exhaled slowly, relief washing over him. He had passed the trial not by cunning, not by force, but by being human. As he returned to Salith's side, he realized something profound. Humanity's strength was not in technology or weapons or numbers. It was in choice, in integrity, in the courage to act with respect. And that strength, small though it may seem, could ripple across the stars. For the first time, Elias felt the true weight of the bond, not as a burden but as a privilege. He had become more than he was before, and in doing so, he had begun to teach the galaxy what humans could be. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, unseen yet attentive, the other factions began to take note. The simple man from Earth, with a silver ring on his finger, had already begun to change the way the stars looked at humanity. Elias stood at the observation deck of the ship, staring out at the endless field of stars. He had grown used to the beauty of space, but tonight it felt different. A quiet tension hummed through the ship, as if the stars themselves were aware that something significant was about to happen. Salith was beside him, its glowing eyes reflecting the distant galaxies. Elias could feel the bond pulsing against his finger, a steady reminder that he was no longer alone. The factions are moving, Salith said. They have convened a council to discuss the significance of your bond. Some see it as a threat, others see it as a potential opportunity. They will test humanity's worth before allowing any further recognition. Elias nodded, his stomach tightening. He had faced scrutiny before, had answered questions and endured tests, but this felt different. This was not just about him. This was about Earth, about his species, and about what humans represented in the eyes of the galaxy. What do we do? He asked. We demonstrate what your species can accomplish, Salith replied. Not through force, not through manipulation, but through unity and action. This is where humans can teach the galaxy their greatest lesson. The ship changed course, moving toward a central assembly of alien civilizations. As they approached, Elias could see the ships gathered in formation. Each was unique, representing a different culture, different history, and different expectations. Their lights shimmered like jewels, and their size was breathtaking. Some were delicate, almost fragile, yet held power in the way they moved. Others were massive, radiating authority and experience. When they arrived, Elias was escorted to the council chamber. The room was enormous, circular, and lined with holographic displays that pulsed with energy. Leaders from countless species were present. Some observed silently, others whispered among themselves, their voices strange and melodic. Elias felt the weight of their attention. Every eye, every sensor, every thought seemed focused on him. The leader of the council, a being with translucent skin and eyes that shimmered like molten gold, spoke first. "Human," it said, its voice both commanding and curious, "you have accepted a bond that connects you to our kind. Many questions remain. Why should your species be trusted? How can we be certain that humans will act with integrity as your bond implies?" Elias felt a chill run down his spine. He knew this was a pivotal moment, one that could determine Earth's place among the stars. He straightened, looked around the room, and spoke from his heart. You are asking about trust, and I understand why. My people are young, untested, and often make mistakes. But there is something we have learned through those mistakes. We are capable of cooperation, of honesty, and of choosing to act rightly even when it is difficult. That is our strength. That is what the bond represents, and I am here to prove it. The chamber was silent. Then a being with wings like shimmering ribbons floated forward. Its voice was soft, almost musical, but carried the weight of authority. We have seen humans act with courage in small ways, but can your species rise to challenges that threaten more than one life? Can you unite under pressure without coercion or dominance? Elias felt the ring warm against his finger. He knew the answer. Yes, he said firmly. We can. Our strength comes not from controlling others, but from choosing to act together. We rely on one another, and in doing so, we can achieve more than any individual or any fleet of ships could alone. That is who we are. A murmur spread across the room. Some of the aliens tilted their heads, their expressions unreadable. Others seemed intrigued, leaning forward as if to listen more closely. Salith placed a hand on Elia's shoulder, a gesture of support. The council then presented a scenario. It was a simulation, a crisis on a distant planet that threatened an entire system. Aliens of various species were in conflict, resources were scarce, and communication had broken down. The council challenged Elias to find a solution, to show that humanity could unite without using force. Elias studied the simulation carefully. He noticed patterns that the aliens had overlooked. He saw how different factions could cooperate if given the chance, how resources could be shared, and how misunderstandings could be resolved through communication. Slowly, he spoke, outlining his plan step by step. We can establish neutral zones for negotiation, he said. We can assign tasks based on skill, not rank. We can ensure that everyone's needs are acknowledged and that no one gains advantage unfairly. If we work together, we can resolve this crisis without violence. The council watched closely. As Elias implemented his plan within the simulation, they saw what he described come to life. Conflicts eased, communication improved, and the factions began to work together. The simulation ended with success, without a single act of aggression. A leader with liquid metal skin leaned forward. This is remarkable. A species without advanced power weapons can still resolve a system-wide crisis through cooperation alone. How did you learn this? Elias smiled faintly. We learn it in everyday life. On Earth, we face problems that cannot be solved by force. Families, communities, workplaces, we succeed by understanding, by listening, and by acting together. It is simple, but it works. Another leader, a towering being with multiple eyes and limbs, spoke. Your species is untested among the stars, but your solution shows potential. Perhaps your kind can contribute something that others cannot, the ability to unite where division is expected. Salith looked at Elias with pride. You see, Elias, you have demonstrated what your people are capable of. You have shown that humanity's strength is not in domination, but in choice, in cooperation, and in integrity. Elias felt a surge of confidence. He realized the significance of his actions. The bond was not just a personal connection, it was a bridge for humanity. Every decision he made, every word he spoke, had the power to shape how the galaxy saw his species. The council began to discuss the implications. Some still remained skeptical, but many were clearly impressed. They debated, analyzed, and finally, they came to a decision. Earth would be recognized as a potential partner in interstellar affairs, not because of its technology, not because of its size, but because of the qualities Elias had demonstrated. When the meeting ended, Elias returned to Salith's ship. He felt exhausted but exhilarated. He had faced scrutiny, doubt, and the weight of responsibility, and he had succeeded. Salith placed a hand on his shoulder. You have done well. Your people have shown that they can rise to challenges without violence through cooperation and understanding. This is a lesson the galaxy has not seen before, and it is remarkable that it comes from a species so young among the stars. Elias looked at the ring, still warm against his finger. He thought of Earth, of his family, of the friends he had never realized could represent something larger. It's strange, he said quietly. I always thought humans were ordinary, but maybe we're capable of more than we know. You are, Salith said softly. And now others are beginning to see it too. The next step will bring further challenges, but your species has made its first impression. That impression is strong. In the following days, Elias continued to observe and learn. The Council sent envoys to communicate directly with Earth, sharing knowledge and opening opportunities for collaboration. He realized that humanity's chance among the stars was just beginning. It was not guaranteed, and it would require continued effort, wisdom, and choice, but it was real. Elias felt a quiet pride. The ring, which had seemed so simple when he first bought it, had become a symbol of hope, of connection, and of humanity's potential. He understood now that greatness did not always come from power or technology. Sometimes it came from the simplest qualities: honesty, fairness, and the courage to act rightly. He stood once more at the observation deck, staring out at the stars. The galaxy was vast, full of mystery and danger, but also full of opportunity. He felt the bond pulsing against his finger, steady and reassuring. Humanity had taken its first real steps beyond Earth, not with weapons or fleets, but with principles that the stars could recognize. And Elias knew that this was only the beginning. Elias stood on the observation deck, the soft hum of the ship under his feet blending with the steady pulse of the ring on his finger. He had learned much since that first day he bought the simple silver band. What had seemed like a small, ordinary decision had grown into something extraordinary. Humanity, a species so young and untested among the stars, had become part of a larger galaxy, and Elias, once a quiet engineer, had become its voice and representative. The news from the Council had spread quickly across the Veyari networks. Other species were watching, some with skepticism, others with curiosity. Elias knew that not everyone would accept humanity easily. Some would seek to challenge them, to test their loyalty, to exploit their inexperience. But he also knew that the humans he represented had something unique: choice, integrity, cooperation, qualities that could not be forced or bought, only lived. "Elias," Salith said, approaching, "the Council has convened again. They wish to observe the next demonstration of your species' strengths. You will lead, and your decisions will influence how humanity is perceived for generations." Elias swallowed. Leading humans in a galactic arena was far beyond anything he had imagined for his life. And yet he felt a quiet determination. The bond had guided him this far, it would guide him still. "I understand," he said. "I'll do my best." The council chamber was more elaborate than before. Aliens of countless shapes and sizes had gathered, some floating in midair, others standing on legs or appendages that seemed impossibly long. Holographic projections displayed planets, star systems, and simulations of complex crises. Elias realized that this was the ultimate test, not a simple simulation, but a scenario involving multiple species, competing interests, and potential disaster. One of the council leaders, a being with translucent wings and glowing eyes, spoke first. "Human, a coalition of systems faces a critical resource shortage. Conflict has already begun, and resolution seems impossible. You are tasked with creating a solution that preserves life, resources, and peace. Failure will demonstrate why humans are untested and inexperienced. Success will show your species' potential." Elias studied the holograms carefully. He could see the factions, their positions, their demands. Many would assume the solution required force or coercion, but he had learned differently. Humanity solved problems by cooperation, communication, and understanding. He could do this. He had to. "We will not use violence," he said firmly. "We will create communication channels, neutral zones for negotiation, and task assignments based on ability and willingness. We will ensure that each party's needs are acknowledged. Conflict ends not by fear, but by understanding." A murmur went through the chamber. Some aliens tilted their heads, skeptical, others curious. Elias' words were human, yet they carried an undeniable truth. He worked alongside Salith and representatives from several of the factions, organizing meetings, mediating disputes, and finding compromises. Hours turned into days, and Elias felt exhaustion but also exhilaration. Every time a disagreement arose, he reminded himself of humanity's greatest lessons: listen, understand, and act with fairness. The factions resisted at first. Old rivalries, deep-seated mistrust, and fear threatened every attempt at cooperation, but Elias persisted. He did not command, he guided. He listened, asked questions, and offered solutions that acknowledged everyone's needs. Slowly, trust began to form. The alien factions realized that the human was neither naive nor weak. He was fair, deliberate, and willing to act not for advantage, but for the greater good. By the third day, the crisis simulation was almost entirely resolved. Resources were shared, disputes mediated, and communications restored. Even the most skeptical factions nodded in acknowledgement. Elias could feel the pulse of the ring, steady and strong, as if affirming that the bond had grown even deeper through these efforts. One of the council elders, a massive being with reflective skin, finally spoke. "Human, you have done what few experienced species could accomplish. Without weapons, without threats, you have united factions and resolved a crisis that has persisted for decades. Your species possesses qualities we underestimated." Elias felt a mixture of pride and humility. "We are not perfect," he said quietly, "but we try to understand, to work together, and to act with integrity. That is what makes us strong." Another council member, a being with shimmering, ribbon-like limbs, added, "Your perspective is unusual yet effective." Perhaps the galaxy needs more of this approach, more of what humanity offers, not through domination but through unity and choice. Salith looked at Elias with eyes that shimmered like starlight. "You see, Elias, humanity's strength is not in weapons or numbers. It is in integrity, fairness, and the courage to act rightly. You have shown the galaxy that this is possible." Over the following days, communications between the factions improved. Aliens who had once distrusted one another began exchanging knowledge, resources, and even cultural practices. Elias watched as humanity's reputation spread, not as conquerors, but as partners capable of fostering cooperation and peace. Back on Earth, humans continued their ordinary lives, unaware of the impact of a single man and a small silver ring. Elias often thought of them, of the children, families, and communities that demonstrated patience, courage, and understanding every day. These simple acts, repeated countless times, were what made humans extraordinary in the galaxy. One evening, as the ship drifted past a cluster of stars, Salith spoke. "Elias, the Council has recognized humanity as a potential partner among civilizations. They have seen what you can accomplish, and they are beginning to trust your species." Elias looked at the stars, feeling the weight and significance of the moment. "It's incredible," he said. "I never thought buying a ring could lead to this, but it feels right. Like it was meant to happen." "It was not chance," Salith said. "It was choice. You chose to honor the bond, to act with integrity, and to represent your species faithfully. That choice has created opportunity for all of humanity." Elias thought about the ring, smooth and warm on his finger. It had seemed ordinary, simple, even insignificant at first. But now it represented connection, trust, and responsibility. It had changed him, and through him, it had changed the galaxy's perception of humans. The final recognition from the Council came in a formal assembly. Aliens from countless civilizations spoke of humanity's potential, acknowledging that humans had demonstrated qualities that even the oldest and most experienced species often overlooked: choice, fairness, and cooperation. Earth was granted observer status in interstellar councils, a chance to learn, grow, and participate in galactic decisions. Elias felt a swell of pride. He had represented humanity not with force, not with cunning, but with the very traits that made humans human. The council members who had doubted him now nodded with respect, and others sought guidance on applying these principles to their own civilizations. Back on the observation deck, Elias turned to Salith. "Do you think humans are ready for this? For the galaxy?" "They are more ready than they know," Salith said. "The bond has connected us, yes, but it has also shown your species' potential. One human, acting with integrity, can influence many. Your example will ripple across the stars." Elias smiled, feeling the steady pulse of the ring against his finger. "Then we'll keep learning, we'll keep growing, and we'll keep showing that humanity can make a difference, not by force but by choice." As the ship sailed through the quiet brilliance of space, Elias realized that the journey had only just begun. Humanity's place among the stars was no longer a question, it was a promise. And the simple silver ring that had seemed so ordinary on Earth had become the symbol of that promise. For the first time, Elias felt the weight of responsibility not as a burden, but as an honor. He had been chosen, yes, but he had also chosen to act rightly, to represent his species, and to show the galaxy that humans were capable of greatness in their own way. And somewhere among the stars, civilizations that had doubted, feared, or ignored humanity began to reconsider. They saw not a species to conquer, but a species capable of cooperation, respect, and understanding. A species that could teach even the oldest and wisest among them a new way to live. Elias looked at the ring one last time, feeling its warmth, its pulse, and its quiet power. It had begun as a simple object bought on a quiet afternoon. It had become the bond that connected him to another being, to a civilization, and to the galaxy itself. He knew that the future was uncertain, that challenges would come, and that humanity would still have much to learn. But he also knew this. Humans had a strength that no weapon could match, no fleet could enforce, and no technology could replicate. Their strength lay in choice, in loyalty and understanding, and in the courage to act rightly even when it was difficult. Elias smiled, standing tall against the view of countless stars. Humanity had taken its first real steps into the galaxy, and this was only the beginning.